Disney is getting dangerously close to real-life Five Nights at Freddy's. They've built a robot that moonwalks, one that balances on a single ball, and a self-walking Olaf that's about to hit the parks. We're Luz and Sauco, and this is Disney's most advanced animatronics, Volume 2. Herbie. What you're seeing isn't CGI or a rig. It's a real robot balancing on a ball, staying upright by correcting itself about 250 times per second. This is Herbie, built in Disney's R&D lab as the mechanical member of the Fantastic Four. The director asked for one big change. Instead of floating, Herbie had to bounce on a ball so it could be used in Disneyland. That meant top-heavy robot, round ball, real guests nearby, and only a few months to make it work. Inside, Herbie works like an inverted pendulum. Sensors are constantly measuring its angle, position, and speed, and the control system keeps driving the ball in the direction of the fall, just fast enough to stop a wipeout. The hard part isn't balance, it's acting. When Herbie waves or throws its arms out, its center of mass moves instantly. The software treats every move like a potential fall, predicts where the weight is going, and spins the ball so that invisible center of mass stays above the contact point. On the outside, it's full of Marvel details, tech decals, part numbers that reference the cinematic universe, and a tape reel style face designed with the filmmakers, so it feels like the same character from the movie. This wasn't a lab demo. Imagineering and the live entertainment team turned Herbie into a real meet-and-greet character in Tomorrowland, rolling around, reacting to guests, and staying upright the whole time. And they didn't wait years. Herbie went from concept to performing in the park day and date with the new Fantastic Four movie, with the film animators helping shape how the real robot moves. If you are enjoying the video, consider subscribing and leave a like, it helps us a lot.
BVX droids. Five Nights at Freddy's promised roaming animatronics, but Disney was the one that actually built the tech to make that possible. In one of the labs, there's a small humanoid test robot, just a metal body with legs. Its job is simple: learn to walk, turn, and do character moves without face planting every 2 seconds. Instead of hand-coding every joint, the team uses reinforcement learning. First, they drop a digital version of the robot into a super realistic simulator, like a video game body it can control. In that virtual world, it talks, falls, gets back up, and tries again thousands of times. Because it's all simulation, they can cram about 10,000 hours of practice into a few days. It learns like a human baby, pure trial and error, but at a ridiculous speed. When it finally finds motions that work, all that experience gets compressed into a neutral network they can load onto the real robot. Turn on the physical robot, and it can walk, turn, and catch itself using the same instincts it learned in the simulator. They even train it with animator-made moves, a character walk, a run, spins, all of that. One of the tests is a moonwalk-style step, sliding the feet backward while the body leans forward just enough to stay balanced. That kind of move is important because it proves the robot isn't just replaying a canned animation. It's actively keeping itself standing while doing something that should be very hard for a two-legged machine. That same brain is what powers the BVX droids. These are the little Star Wars droids that walk on 2 legs and move with real personality. Inside, they're reading their joint positions and 2 cameras that act like eyes. On a screen in the lab, you can see what they see: a normal video feed, and next to it, a simple stick figure version of the person in front of them. If a guest leans in, the droid can see that. If someone waves, it recognizes the arm going up and it can react. To turn this into actual shows, Imagineering built a droid recording studio. A director comes in with a script, they run scenes with the droids, record the motions, tweak timing and eye lines, and those little clips become the building blocks for autonomous performances out in the land. The long-term goal is clear: whole areas of the park acting like stages, with free-roaming robots that can move around, notice guests, and perform for hours without a puppeteer driving every single step.
Aquatic robots. Most people worry about animatronics chasing them in a dark hallway. Disney is already building the ones that could follow you into the water. Water is brutal for robots. It fries electronics and punishes tiny mistakes. And that's exactly where Disney R&D is sending their next generation of machines. Their first prototype was basically a radio-controlled underwater plane. Think of a mini-sub with a jet pump. It sucks water in, blasts it out the back for thrust, and small fins control up, down, and roll. It worked, but it moved like a machine. Functional, not alive. So they switched to biomimicry. copying real animals. They built a robotic dolphin tail that moves in a smooth sine wave. Inside, two servos bend the spine. Moving together gives that wide side-to-side motion. Moving opposite gives the classic up and down dolphin tick. When you blend both, the robot stops looking like a stiff submarine and starts gliding through the water with motion that actually feels like a creature. Then, they built a hydrofoil robot. On the surface, you just see a pink foam block. That's where a future character could sit. Under the water is a wing with control surfaces, a rudder, and a thruster pushing it forward. The brain sits in a box on top. It uses chips to follow a planned path, an IMU to measure tilt and balance, ultrasonic sensors to know how high it is above the water. With that combo, the system can stabilize itself and follow complex routes over the surface. Basically, a self-driving platform for water. Now that the tech behaves, the fun part is turning it into a character. And with a new avatar experience on the way to Disney California Adventure, it's very easy to imagine this same system driving Pandoran sea creatures that swim alongside your boat. Fully autonomous, no human pilot in sight.
Projection map face. The next Disney robot has a face that can literally glitch off its skull if the mat is wrong by just a millimeter. We've seen robots walk, fly, and swim, but the hardest part to get right is always the same: the face. Traditionally, if you want a robot to smile, you cram the head with tiny motors, pulling on rubber skin. This is heavy, it breaks constantly, and most of the time, it still looks a little dead behind the eyes. Disney R&D changed the approach completely. Instead of forcing mechanics to imitate a real face, they project one. They use high-fidelity front projection on a static head shell. Inside the head, nothing moves. No servos, no linkages, no rubber mask stretching underneath. That instantly solves two big problems. Number one is texture. Rubber always looks like rubber. With projection, the skin is made of light. They can change how it looks in real time, make the character look sweaty, pale, flushed, or even add battle damage, like a fresh cut across the face without swapping a single physical part. Number two is micro-expressions. Those tiny twitches around the eyes and mouth are what make the face feel alive. Motors are too slow and too chunky for that level of detail. Light isn't. With projection, they can animate fast eye darts, tiny eyebrow shifts, little mouth movements that are almost impossible with servos. But there's a huge catch. If the head moves even slightly, the projection slips, and the face starts to slide off the skull. To prevent that, they use a calibration crown, a ring of AR markers placed around the head. Cameras can track those markers in real time, calculate the exact position and rotation of the head, and the software warps the video instantly so the face stays perfectly locked to the shell as it moves. The result is a head that can show almost infinite expressions, swap moods or damage stage in an instant, and do all of that with zero mechanical parts moving inside the face. Less to break, more to express, and much closer to that "this thing is actually alive" feeling that Imagineering has been chasing since the very first audio animatronics.
Loki, Legacy. Before Spider-Man was flying over Avengers Campus, Disney's big experiment was a giant green dinosaur pulling a cart. This is Loki the dinosaur, and he's basically the great-grandparent of almost every free-roaming robot Disney has today. For decades, animatronics had one huge limitation. They were glued to the floor. Massive hydraulic cylinders, hoses under the stage, tons of noise and pressure just to move an arm a few degrees. They looked impressive, but you could only see them from a distance. They were moving statues, not characters you could actually walk next to. Loki was the first time R&D asked a dangerous question. What if the robot doesn't need the floor at all? So they ditched hydraulics and went all electric. Motors instead of pistons, hidden batteries instead of pumps and oil. All the power and control traveled with the character instead of living under the stage. The result? A full-size dinosaur slowly making its way through the park, blinking, turning its head, reacting, and literally sharing the walkway with guests. By today's standards, Loki is simple. No AI training, no cameras for eyes, no crazy moonwalk moves. But he proved the most important idea in this whole video. An animatronic doesn't have to stay on a platform. It can roam, interact, and feel like a living creature in your space. From that point on, the door was open for everything else. The Muppet Mobile Lab, early free-roaming characters, the tech that would later evolve into the Spider-Man stunt robot, and the droids walking through Batuu. All of that traces back to one experiment in R&D. Can we free the robot from the floor? Lucky was the first yes, and theme parks haven't been the same since.
Self-walking Olaf. We've talked about robots that balance on a ball, droids that teach themselves to walk, and even electric dolphins swimming underwater. But all of that is aiming at one final goal: the self-walking character. If you've already watched our video about the evolution of Olaf's animatronics, you know we went deep into every version of him in rides and shows. Today we're jumping to the next step in that story: Olaf as a free walking character you can actually meet. For years, there was a simple problem. Olaf is too small for a performer to fit inside, and too expressive to just be a static figure. He needs to move, look up to you, and react in real time. But he can't be a person in a suit. So the R&D team took everything they learned from their walking robots and poured it into one goal: make Olaf walk on his own two little legs. They brought this prototype to Josh Damaro, and in front of him, there isn't a rig full of cables. It's Olaf, at his real scale, blinking, shifting his weight, and taking careful steps across the floor. You can even see on Josh's face that this feels like meeting an actual character, not a prop. And thankfully, this isn't just staying in the lab. Disney confirmed that this self-walking Olaf is coming to the World of Frozen Lands in Hong Kong and Paris, where he'll actually start meeting guests in the parks. That's the real point of all of this tech. When someone walks up to Olaf, they don't think about the sensors, AI, or control systems. They just see this Nomen friend, alive and in front of them. If you want the full story of how Olaf got there, from ride animatronics to this walking version, we already broke it down in its own deep dive video. We'll leave it linked so you can watch it right after this one.